You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. This episode is brought to you by KingswaySoft. KingswaySoft is a leading integration solution provider offering software solutions that make data integrations affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 80 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate data with various business systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. And KingswaySoft now works with CDS and Power Apps. We thank KingswaySoft for sponsoring ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio. So Matthew, I've been doing some reading, and my goal to do some reading. One of the things I've done is revisited some of the books I read years ago and vaguely remember, but you want to see if they were what I remember them. And one of the books I read that I hadn't picked up for 25 years is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm sure you've read that book.
Absolutely. I've read it. I have a copy that is over 25 years old, and I also have a tear out from an old Covey planner that I had, which is like the super condensed version. This wasn't the one that was like the huge book you carried around with you. This was the slimline version. No, this was a fairly reasonably sized, day runner, day planner size unit. So no, I didn't carry the giant one.
So, and I wrote a review I posted on social media, and I think you saw it, but, one thing that, that book really is a classic. I was asking, was this going to hold up? I mean, think about it. I mean, the book was written before most people had internet access, before the World Wide Web was really an available thing, before social media. So it really is a different world we're in now than it was in 1989 when Stephen Covey wrote the book. And I gotta say, it holds up really well. I had recently read some other books from that era, and none of the other books I read from late 80s, early 90s held up nearly as well. Part of that was, I think, the business books from that era, make a lot of references to companies that in some cases aren't around anymore or aren't the same company they are now. Stories about Xerox from 1980 is great, but it really doesn't apply to today.
Right.
But he doesn't really do a lot of case studies with specific companies. He's not trying to be trendy. And the other thing is it's kind of a reaction to the self-help type books because it's not a quick fix kind of book.
Yeah, agreed. And this is one that I've read several times over the years, and there's always things inside of it that I'd either forgotten, or as I'm reading through it, I kind of give myself a hard time of I should definitely be doing more of that or less of that, especially with some of the little stories along the way, things like just how you listen to people, how you engage with people. A lot of that is very, very timeless content, but written in a excellent way. I'm a big fan of the book.
The one, when I went through it, I kind of was grading myself on what I think I'm doing good at and the habits that I'm not doing well at. The one that has jumped out in the last 2 weeks is the one, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Mm-hmm. And in business and personal life, I've had several cases where I've either had to talk about it with somebody on my team or gotten feedback about myself that, that's made me think, you know what, I was the eye doctor giving the diagnosis based on what I needed rather than really listening to them. And that's one that I think of the 7 habits, that one and the 7th one, to sharpen the saw. Certain aspects of sharpening the saw are the things that I probably need to focus the most on.
Yeah. It's probably a cop-out answer, but I feel like there's work that I want to do in every one of them.
But the one I want to talk about today it kind of undergirds all the habits, which is the PPC balance. You remember that part?
Yeah, absolutely. Production capability, right?
So it tells a story about the farmer who has a goose that starts laying golden eggs, and he gets greedy and impatient, and so he kills the goose and opens them up, and there's no golden eggs because he's basically killed the production capacity. And so a lot of the efficiency writing you read out there, or productivity, is really focused on the P side of it, the production side of things, how to be a more efficient producer, how to do what you're doing more efficiently. But if you focus just on that at the expense of the things that empower you to be productive, getting enough rest, spending time talking to, investing in the lives of the people you work with, building relationships with your customers, learning new skills, you can see short-term gains. Like I could stay up 24 hours a day and get a lot done, but I'm going to burn myself out.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, too much to purely focus on the production side of things. There's always one more thing to do, another bucket to fill, something like that. And I feel like something that exemplifies this kind of, challenge that's out there of just trying to focus on the P side of that equation is the ridiculousness of some of the life hack culture out there. So much when you look at life hacks are, purely focused on the P side of that equation. And, not only are some of them just kind of, ridiculous, a lot of them end up falling into the common sense category as well. But there's only so much you can do to try to be producing more. You've got to have that balance.
Right. And, in our world with a rapidly changing landscape from a technological standpoint, when I'm talking to people who are consultants and architects in the dynamics world, I'm always asking them, what are you learning? What are you getting into? What are the new stuff? Flow, Power Apps, Field Service, Project Service, new stuff coming with the roadmap are you doing? And too often I hear, I've just been so busy. I'm on this project 40 hours a week. And that's a clear sign that they're short-sighted. And so I thought back to some of the discussions that we've had about the weekly planning session. And I do that every weekend, usually sometime on Saturday afternoon or Sunday sometime. But this kind of helped me focus what I'm doing there a little bit more, because I've looked at more of the things that I have to get done, or the big things coming up. Like if I've got, I'm thinking now my Ignite sessions, like I need to start preparing for them. And I've thought of that and tried to bring that in. But getting back to the 4 quadrants, I think is really helpful to get out of the urgent versus important trap, where there's always a fire to put out. And he says in the book something like, if you're going to be following somebody's script, either you're writing the script or somebody else is going to write it for you. And that's the idea that somebody's going to fill up your calendar with a bunch of meetings. And so what I'm doing now is, since I reread the book, I'm still doing my weekly planning meeting, but I'm looking and evaluating each meeting I'm having with the 4 quadrants. And some things, the things that are important and urgent, you got to do. But some of them that are meetings for meeting's sake or that type of thing, I'm making a decision, and some of them I've declined the meeting, because of that, because I see there's not any gaps, there's not any white space between those meetings. So the things that are important, but not urgent, really where you want to live in the quadrant 2, I don't have any time for that, and I need to make time for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially having some buffers around the important things is important to have to be able to accommodate those meetings that are going to run over. And in the heat of the moment, it can seem really important, even if you've planned it out, to throw that to the side and say no, but we've got to finish this, rather than staying true to that commitment that you're making to yourself.
Right.
So, it's interesting when we talk about, the PC side of that equation, because an important part for me, and this is somewhere I try to be better at, but I constantly try to keep it in my mind, is the balance of doing that, not just in one area of my life. I mean, in the book, there are kind of 4 categories that falls into physically, mentally, socially, and spiritually, that you're going to do that. And each of those have kind of a description behind them. It's funny. I'm a big University of Minnesota fan, as many folks out there who've met me know.
I had no idea.
I know. We're in the process of rebuilding the football program. We have a coach of the team, Coach Fleck. He puts his twist on that, and it puts a smile on my face whenever I hear him say it, because his take is, athletically, academically, socially, spiritually, but definitely playing on the same thing. And it's easy to overlook how important that balance across those different areas is. I mean, just kind of, in the same way that you don't want to focus in one quadrant of the, kind of the urgent, half of that, 4-box grid. You don't want to just focus on, say, the, mental or the learning of, just an application, that kind of thing. Make time to decompress, make time to have those little rituals, around that can, help you stay focused throughout everything you're going to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And part of that too, and if you read the 7 Habits, they build on each other. Mm-hmm. So starting with being proactive, and then I can't remember them all in order, but then building to start with the end in mind. And that's when he gets into the idea of a mission statement, of identifying the roles you have. He paints a picture of your imagine you're going to a funeral, and then you look in the casket, and surprise, it's you. And what do you want to hear the people saying about you? So, and I have mixed feelings about the mission statement, because too many organizations and people who I know have a real mission statement. It's just words, and they put it on the wall and never think about it. So I'm kind of a little torn about whether I should write a official mission statement. I do like the idea of thinking about all the different roles you have, be it, employee, boss, son, father, daughter, whatever, and then thinking through your goals for each one of those roles. That, I think, helps you from getting tunnel vision and being like the guy with really big arms but really skinny legs, kind of thing, where you're really, really strong in one area but at the expense of the others.
Right. So, it's funny. I had read your blog post that you'd put together as you went back through the 7 Habits, and I couldn't help but notice the little comment you have on there. I don't really know how I feel about the whole mission statement piece of it. And I get that, because there is part of it where you look at the people in kind of popular culture who have those mission statements. They're really famous people, your Oprahs, your Elon Musks. There are articles that go around. I see them on, LinkedIn and elsewhere, where they have this nice, very concise, like one sentence thing that's out there. It's in the public of, what their mission is. Which is, especially when you are your brand, like one of those people are, that's really important. But I also feel like for, the rest of us, where, yes, we all have a personal brand, but we're maybe not making that the cornerstone of, a massive empire that we're putting together. I think it's still important to have that mission statement, but it can take a little bit different of a form and not fall into that problem of just being a little quip that it has to sound nice, that has to try to put on a good front. And I think it's much more, personal mission statement should be personal and doesn't have to be shared with the world.
Right.
But again, it's going through the exercise of thinking through what goes into that mission statement. And in 7 Habits, the examples that he gives there, they're not little pithy one sentence things, They're like groups of, they're like 7 to 10. I think one of them's like 15 or 20 sentences that are timeless. They don't necessarily have a lot of explanation, but they do have kind of this almost timelessness to them. They're the kinds of things that are important to somebody. They don't require a certain job title. They don't require certain possessions. They don't require specific family status. And to do that, for me anyway, it's, kind of thinking through, all of those different aspects of your life and having them come together in this set of things that are really important to you that become the mission statement or the mission. I think he calls it a creed at one point as another way to think of that. And the other part that I think is important there is, it takes time to put that together, and it's not that you're inventing this mission as you do it, but rather kind of detecting what's already there. And it's not that you're just making something up as you go through this. Well,
let me add on another book that I think pairs very nicely with this. It's more recent, which is Simon Sinek's Start with the Why. Mm-hmm. And I think did I get that right? Start with the why.
Start with why. Yeah.
Start with why, because the idea is the nugget in that book is, instead of focusing on and defining yourself by what you do or how you do it, focus on why you do it. Mm-hmm. And I think that could become your mission statement. So maybe it's not a 25-point mission statement, but for each of those roles, like the job you have, why do you do it? What motivates you to do that? And other than money. And by doing that, making sure that you're doing things that back up the why, and maybe saying no to things that aren't in line with the reason why you're doing it. It gives the example of Apple versus Dell. Dell is the company that is defined by what they do. They make computers, they do networking, whatever, where Apple's more defined by the why they do it. And so that I think is helpful. And so I haven't gotten to my official big, formal mission statement in life, but in each of those areas of life, I've identified kind of the why, things like, I do what I do because I enjoy helping other people, make their business processes better, make their lives easier, and so doing things and also seeing people grow. So that's what motivates me with my team and people I mentor, and doing podcasts and that sort of thing. And that's very consistent, whether it's a specific action for my job or whatever. So that's what I found helpful. Again, I don't know that I'll get to an official, formal mission statement, but at least having something based on the quadrant or based on the, what it is, then a way to evaluate that and say, should I do this? What priority should I put on it?
Yeah. Well, a couple things, Joel. One is, I get that. Totally get it. There's something I'd like to challenge you a little bit in one of the examples that you gave there.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick on. I would find it hard to believe that you've gone deep enough on some of your why, if like your personal mission statement includes something that includes the term business process in there. I think
I just using it as an example. Yeah, so maybe I need a deeper why, but making people's lives easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's the kind of thing that I think is worth driving toward. And I'd like to propose. I think this is something that I'm probably overdue on doing, is revisiting some of the personal mission statement. But I'd like to, certainly kind of re-examine mine, what I have, figure out what's changed, because this is something that doesn't have to be static over time. And maybe, both of us, as something on ProdCast, we can set a challenge for ourselves to revisit what we have, or whatever we have or use as that personal mission statement, and come back together in a future episode to be able to kind of compare notes on what we saw, what we heard, what we thought, what surprised us as we kind of revisited that personal mission statement.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I'm sure having your family grow like yours has recently, mm-hmm. That probably impacts how you execute on your mission statement.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's one of those things for people out there listening to podcasts. Certainly, if you want to kind of take an opportunity, maybe, read through that section of 7 Habits. I mean, I certainly highly recommend the book. You want to kind of do the same thing. Share your journey back with us, your thoughts on what happened. I'd love to hear that, because this is something that, if you haven't done it before, it can be pretty powerful, some of the things that you end up thinking through.
One of the reasons I think I've resisted a formal mission statement in the past is I think I've been worried I may unnecessarily limit myself as well. I'm very, concerned about and kind of resistant to putting labels like, I don't identify myself as an official sports fan of one team, for example,
Sure.
Just because, again, I haven't found that one that I'm just so head over heels over. So, again, maybe that's I don't know if that's good or not, but I think, I don't want to do something that's so narrow that I close myself off from other options, other potential things that I might not have thought through. So I think it needs to be the core principles that you guide your life by, but not saying I will only, eat this type of food or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely does. So I'd really like to revisit this. I mean, definitely give us some runway to do it because it can take a little while. Maybe we, sync up on this in a couple of months. So maybe in October we
it'd be awesome.
Cover off on the experiences there. And then just, kind of circling back, we started this conversation talking about some of the P versus PC and getting that balance there. It's interesting timing for this topic to come up. I mean, I'm in the middle of the biggest PC investment of my life right now. I have a very generous paternal leave, or parental bonding leave policy that gives me the opportunity to basically shelve my work responsibility for 12 weeks.
How far into the 12 weeks are you right now?
So I have about 3.5 weeks remaining as of this recording.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, the P side of the equation is largely diminished. I mean, certainly there are P responsibilities outside of formal work, cooking, cleaning, childcare, home maintenance, blah, blah, blah. But, certainly this has been a time for me to be able to evaluate, family change, building that lasting change in how we're going to operate as a new unit, food habits for the family, and even, outside of some of the family stuff, looking at some of those other PC categories that have maybe fallen to the background. Like I've been putting off getting glasses for many, many years. And here I find myself, wearing a pair of glasses to help deal with, eye fatigue as I stare at a computer all day. And just those types of things. So something that I would, encourage for people out there is sometimes getting a big block to be able to upset your normal routine and really think through and start to take action on some of that, PC type of activity. It's been a great experience for me to be able to do that. And I think, though we'll check on this once I'm back into the office, but I think it's also improved my ability to ignore, some of the things that might be demanding of my time, email and so forth, even more so than I've had in the past. So,
right.
Anybody out there, if you have, those opportunities for a parental leave, that kind of thing, take full advantage. It's definitely been a good experience on my side.
Yeah, you and Britta had a really good conversation about that on the last Implement This episode, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. It was
good
to start recording with her again too.
The other things that I've kind of made as a goal to do after rereading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is, number one, is try and get more of a morning routine. Mm-hmm. I have, for the last few years, have not really had a morning routine, and more times than not, it's been start working as soon as feet hit the floor kind of routine. And, realizing that I've done that because there's a reason, because it gives me some, short-term efficiency gain because I can free up some time later in the day or whatever. But what happens, that time usually frees up with other stuff. And so I've been in the last 2 weeks forcing myself to delay when I check my email if I know I have something I have to send to somebody to hold off on doing that, and forcing myself to, make progress on books I'm working with, spend time with the kids, maybe walk the dog, and have more of a morning routine before I take my kids to school. The other one, and I'm about 5 days into this, is the journaling habit, which is something that is highly recommended in the book, and I know you do it. And just the idea of, I think that reinforces the planning. Because if you can journal, you can talk about how am I doing in these areas on these goals, and where am I falling short, and what do I need to work on, and kind of reinforces that. Even if you don't go back and read the journal again, the act of writing that down, something magical about that, and helps you stay on track for those goals.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. Well, I think, again, if you haven't gathered, we're big fans of the book. So if you've been under a rock for 30 years and haven't seen or heard of this book before, go get the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I read some of the follow-ups, like, the book that expanded on, First Things First and the 8th Habit, probably, 10 to 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quite as moved by those. I think, they got more repetitive, and when the book was so successful, they, I think, tried to milk it a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
the entire, kind of, Covey empire of, books and courses and that kind of thing. There's some great material in there, but it's definitely, pound for pound, 7 Habits, the original book, is just fantastic.
And if you're on Kindle Unlimited, it's available for free.
Oh, there you go. Fun fact about the edition that I have. It's I don't think it was the first edition, but I think it was a very short thereafter follow-up. It was early 90s. They have links in hyperlinks, or not hyperlinks, but like web URLs out there. And they actually lost the web domain that they had it pointing to, which was Covey.com.
Really?
Believe it or not. So yeah, that's literally just like a parked domain now.
Wow.
And doesn't have anything to do with Franklin Covey.
The new version that I read, or the one that's on Amazon Unlimited, is the infographic edition. And it's got at the end of the chapters, or throughout the chapters, things like the quadrants and whatever. They've got some nice visual infographics that put it in a nice visual style. So if that's your thing, that might be the one you might want to check out.
I might have to. I don't have Kindle Unlimited, but might be worth checking out.
All right. Well, this has been a productive episode, and I feel motivated now to go write my mission statement. So we'll definitely revisit that in a few months.
All right. Sounds good, Joel. Take care.
Thanks, Matty. This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio with Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. Follow Matthew on Twitter at @MCAnderson or on his blog, connectingthedata.com. Follow Joel Lindstrom on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. ProdCast and the rest of the CRM Audio Network are available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and anywhere else fine podcasts are available. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC.